Hi BookTube, I'm here to talk about the books I read in the month of May. If you caught my most recent video, I mentioned a little bit how my May went. I started off the month by traveling from California to Oregon like the first week, and then I got sick for a little bit over a week with a cold that like brought me down because it's the first cold I've actually had since before COVID. So it's been a while. So it just knocked me off my feet, and I was not myself at all. I could just barely manage to work the 8 hours. And thank goodness I didn't have to worry about like phone calls or anything like that. Or I didn't have any meetings either that week, so that worked out good. And so yeah, I just like crawled back under the covers and just like zoned out with watching booktube videos and TV, things like that. And then I got better, but then I got completely anxious and worried about my upcoming work trip, which is this week, because there's like this big launch of unknown and mysterious changes that are happening. I have no idea what's coming, but yeah, we will see how my work role changes, how work changes. I don't know, but yeah, just that anxiety. It was just like took me out of my normal routine just when I was getting back on my feet after all that was going on with the travel and being sick, and then I just had that thrown on my plate. So yeah, it was a month, and I'm glad it's like in the past kind of thing. I read a total of 19 books, which I know for a lot of people is a lot of books, but for me it's like the worst reading month I've had in a long time, and I that's completely understandable. I feel like considering all the stuff that I went through with being sick and distracted with traveling, and which was the fun part, the traveling at the beginning, and then all that. So yeah, it is what it is. But as far as the books, so I'll go with the ebooks first, and then go to the physical books, because one of the physical books I was planning to do a vlog right as I was getting sick. So I nixed it because I was like, yeah, my voice was getting worse and worse. But right at the beginning, I read a book. I guess never mind. I'll go ahead and show it now, and then I'll just talk about it more at the end of the video when I'll insert the vlog clips from this. But so I read Joan Bauer's Close to Famous, and this is all about a young teenage girl who she lacks a lot of confidence in school because she can't read, but she like puts a lot of her passion and time into baking, and so cupcakes and muffins are mentioned throughout the entirety of this book. And unfortunately, there's no recipes at all in here. But when I looked up the author, because sometimes I'll do that, just look up the author, like they have a website, or if they've written other books, or just get a feel for them. And she had 2 recipes on her website for a vanilla cupcake and a chocolate cupcake. The chocolate one had mayonnaise in it, and that was actually mentioned in this book. And so I filmed a couple clips of me making chocolate mayonnaise cupcakes, and they were very, very good. They were very moist and full of like chocolate flavor, and it wasn't like greasy or anything like you would think mayonnaise would be. And mayonnaise, it basically was like the butter and the eggs. So yeah, so I'm mentioning this now, but then look for the clips at the end of this video if you want to watch me making the mayonnaise cupcakes. Okay, so yeah, I'll just go ahead and talk about the physical books now, I guess. I read Fair Weather by Richard Peck. This is an author I really enjoy reading. I have several of his books, and often they're set in like the Chicago or Illinois area, like because he grew up there. And this is at the Chicago World Fair in is it 1893, and there's little postcards where the children are they live on this little country farm, and then they go to visit their aunt in Chicago for the first time. And so there's little postcards of them writing back to their parents. So let's see if we can find some more. They're sprinkled throughout here. Let's see here. Oh, here's like, oh yeah, the very first page is the fair. Let's see here. And then there's Buffalo Bill Cody. So this is like a little history book, but wrapped into a children's fiction story, historical fiction. So yeah, really liked this one. And then I read Darlene Franklin, Bridge to Love. This is a Heart Song Presents, and these were eventually Harlequin, the Love Inspired line, which is like their Christian fiction line, bought this whole like publisher out. But this is still yes, under the Heart, called their Heart Song Presents. And so this is set in Vermont when it was like the summer of freezing cold, like the summer that was no summer. How do they phrase it? Yeah, in the year of no summer. So yeah, this is a relationship between like a wealthy to do girl who like her parents don't want her to get involved with a farmer. They want to send her off to New York to make a better match, but she is set on living the quiet life in the country and doesn't mind at all being married to a farmer. So that kind of like mix up there. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I liked the historical setting in Vermont, and then I just thought their relationship was very cute. And for these, there's no like adult content or anything like that, which I do like that it doesn't have any of that in there. And then I read a couple other books that I'm not really going to talk about because I have to get on it to these other books, but I'll just like briefly mention them. I read Western, Night Passage by Norman A. Fox. This says he had 12 hours to change his life or end it. And there's a railroad, a railroad and a train that's like all sorts of things. It's a railroad holdup, kidnapping, and outlaw gang. And so I read this because I was already thinking about June on the Range. I was like, and it was like a hot one of those days in May, and so I went ahead and read this. Although it's not hot at all right now. It's like, sorry for the bad lighting, but I wanted to get a couple of these videos filmed before I leave on my work trip. And it's like gray and overcast, so I'm just working with like the yellow overhead lighting, so it is what it is. I read a Newbery Award winner. This is Roller Skates by Ruth Sawyer. It's about a little girl who's living in New York City, and she just makes friends with people as she's roller skating about the city. This was just okay for me. There was nothing at all special about this book. Not exactly sure why it won a Newbery, it was even nominated for it, but at least for me, it was just okay. And then I read Sisters of the Earth, edited by Lorraine Anderson. And this is a collection of many women nature writers. And so it follows many different themes, like conservation, or focus on just animals, or different settings in America and what have you. So I went through. I'll see if I got my little sticky tabs, and and I just like tabbed some where I was like, I didn't want to have them hanging out, but some of the authors where I wanted to read more from, because this included like poetry, essays, and parts of essays or parts of books. And so sometimes you would only get like 3 pages of a whole book, and so I wanted to note on the authors that I wanted to read more from. And then as far as a couple books that I DNF'd, because I want to get these off my shelf, I DNF'd 3 books, all children's books actually. And yeah, I don't know why I'm just like up briefly show these. For one reason or another, they just did not jive with me. And so yeah, happy to get those off my shelf. And so I got through, or those outside those 3 DNFs, several physical books off my shelf, which yay for that. I mean, that's if I read 19, then that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so 9 of these are gonna be that's good. I like that number. Okay, so as far as ebooks, I read a John Bellairs book that I did for Angie over Angie in the Great World. Me and her are going through John Bellairs' work, and so this is book 2 in the Louis Barnevelt series, I think is the name of the series, The Figure in the Shadows. And we did a live show over on her channel for this book. And so next month we're going to be reading book 3, which I think it was something like The Witch, the Ring, and something along those lines. Like I was like a C.S. Lewis kind of title, but yeah, we're going to be reading book 3 next month if you want to join us. But yeah, I really like this series. It kind of reminds me a little bit of this series because it's like set in the Midwest. Back in yonder years, and it's very this series is very like cozy, but there are like some mystery, not horror, but like gothic elements, but you can kind of tell from the cover here with like the spooky, the spooky house with the light, and like there's a figure standing there with almost like a skeletal hand, to be honest. But yeah, this book I like the first book a little bit better, just because again you're meeting all the characters, and you get introduced to the world. This one is it's more fast paced. It's all about a boy who stumbles upon a magical object and doesn't tell anyone about it, and like gets in trouble because it's yeah, things happen with this magical object. But yeah, it's a great story, and I'm happy that I got to chat with Angie about this series. She's read this series before, I think multiple times, but this is all new to me, and so I'm happy to be along for the ride for this. And so let's see. The next one is Killing Floor by Lee Child, and I read this because I watched the TV show that has a lot of the same story and plot as this one, as the book, but the book I didn't care for it that much. And like I know it's just the world's #1 bestseller, and I know it's very popular, but it just the character in the TV show is very much like the macho man of very little words and like very serious. Whereas in this one, in the book, there's one point where he's dancing around like a pile of money, and this like the whole tone it threw me for a loop considering the TV show. I watched the TV show first before I read this book, but yeah, I would be interested and curious to know if anyone's like read the books and seen the TV show. What are your thoughts on it and how they compare? And also the writing style, it was so choppy. Like the sentences were very short, and it's just like it didn't flow smoothly at all. So yeah, it was just okay. I do recommend the TV show though. I read Greg Iles' Cemetery Road, and I read this because I knew he had a new book coming out called Southern Man, and I'm planning to read that in the month of June. But this is a book he published several years ago. I just had never gotten to it. So this is set in Mississippi, like I feel like almost all of his books are, or at least the ones that I've read. And it's following a man who is haunted by his past because I don't want to give too much away. I'm pretty sure this is like, it should be on the back of the book. But he has a very traumatic thing that happens to him as a child, and feels very guilty about it, and thinks that his parents blame him for it. And so he escapes the small town as soon as possible and goes to DC and becomes successful. But then for one reason or another, he comes back to this small town and is like haunted by his demons kind of thing. But then you also have like what's going on right now in modern times in this town, and things are coming back and coming to a head kind of thing. And yeah, very good writing. And good story. I really like this author. His Natchez Burning series, is that what it's called? I highly recommend that series, the trilogy. Or there's 6 books, but I think they're like 3 and 3. But even though they're chunky books, they're fantastic. If you like like political thrillers is what I would call them, with like Southern Gothic kind of elements. Okay, then I switched gears completely and read Colonel Roosevelt by Edmund Morris. And this is the 3rd book in his trilogy, all about Theodore Roosevelt. And this is following his later years, talking about his travels in the Amazon in South America. It opens with that, and it goes to his death. And again, this is another trilogy I highly recommend. I like the 1st and 2nd book more than this one, just because he doesn't live a quiet life at all. Like, my goodness, he's like the stuff he packed into his life is just astounding to me. It's just absolutely amazing what all he was able to do and see. He travels the world in this book and everything. I mean, yeah, and like runs for his presidency again and all that. But yeah, I do the 1st book. At least try that one, because it pulls you right in, and yeah, this author is a great biographer. Okay, and then I read Henry Huggins by Beverly Cleary. This is the last book I'm going to talk about here. But I read 2 books, actually, and Henry Huggins, and then the other book is Henry and Beezus. And I had recently finished a reread of the Ramona Ramona and Beezus series, and so I wanted to try this one out because I had never had before. And this is the first book that Beverly Cleary ever wrote, and I can kind of see that in the story. It's a very simple, very quick story about a young boy who he's living in on Click a Cat Street, the same as Ramona, and Ramona meets this pop up in this story frequently, and same as book two as well. You know, with Beezus' name in the title, which I was like, oh, because like we know as readers what's coming, that Ramona's gonna have her own like famous series, and you know be the star of the show and that. But when Beverly Cleary was writing this, you know, she didn't know about that, and she even mentions that there's a little author interview at the back of this book how she didn't focus on future projects, even of Henry. So yeah, it was like really cool to see both of them make their appearance. But anyway, as far as Henry goes, he finds a like rangy mutt on the street, and he has fleas, and he begs his mom to have him keep the dog. It's called Ribsy. Because you can see his ribs through his fur, and a little boy going on adventures. And then in book two, he is trying to raise money because he wants a bicycle. And so they have like very like childhood, like brings you back to your own childhood kind of thing of memories. But they're not as good as the Ramona series. Again, this is the very first book that Beverly Cleary wrote. But yeah, you can see the potential, I feel like, in her stories for sure. So those are the books I read in the month of May. I didn't go over everything I read, but I just wanted to give you like the highlights kind of thing and just catch up with you. Onwards to the month of June, where I'm going to be focusing on June on the Range predominantly. And then now I'll insert the clip of me making the chocolate mayonnaise cupcakes. Talk to you soon, book two. Starting off by sifting the dry ingredients. I'm using flour and cornstarch because the recipe calls for cake flour, and I don't have that, so I quickly Googled how to make cake flour because I knew it was possible, but I don't hardly ever make or use something with cake flour, so I don't have it on hand. So yeah, it's 2 cups, so I did 1 3/4 cups flour with a 1/4 cup of cornstarch, Hershey, cocoa powder, salt, and baking soda. This is baking powder, but I promise it's baking soda because I just wanted to reuse the container. For the next mixing bowl, I have sugar, mayonnaise, an egg, vanilla, and not pictured water. And this is what it looks like so far. I'm going to for sure mix this because right now it looks like cottage cheese. Blend this up, mix it up really good, and then start adding in the flour. Okay, if you can ignore the foam, the mixture has come together. It's kind of like a custard. It's a thicker texture. And then now I'm going to start adding in the flour a little bit at a time. It's come together really nice. Now instead of a custard, it's like a chocolate pudding or a mousse. The one annoying thing about this recipe is that it makes 16 to 18 cupcakes. So I'm gonna like divvy this out. It also doesn't tell me like how much to scoop each one. So I'm just gonna use my normal little ice cream scooper and see how it goes. But yeah, a little bit annoying because I don't have a cupcake tin or muffin tin that has that number. I just have the standard 12, so yeah, I'll show you one of the finished 12 in a little bit. For the frosting, I have powdered sugar, half and half, chocolate powder, butter, vanilla, and so far I melted the butter and added the cocoa powder. And then over here, I have the powder, sugar, milk, and vanilla. I'm going to put these two together, but then I'm going to break out my hand mixer because I'm supposed to whip this on high until it's nice and fluffy. Woohoo, we have frosting. Another thing that's interesting about this recipe, outside of the mayonnaise, water, cake flour, is that for the frosting, I forgot to mention, the butter is melted instead of softened and whipped into here. But it turned out really lovely, and I get to now maybe lick some of these beaters. It's my little reward for making these cupcakes, outside of eating them, of course. Excuse the messy frosting, but I didn't want to spend too much time on it, nor am I in no way imaginable a cake decorator, but they'll taste very good. I know that because I already had one, but the cake itself is very light, like it's very, very soft. In fact, when I was icing some of them, it kind of left a little indentation from my thumb because they're so light and fluffy. But yeah, they are cooked completely through, and then the icing, it's so easy to spread on. See, I'll cut one open so I can show you the inside here. They're so soft that they'll almost like fall apart when you hold them. But yeah, for sure you want to eat these over a plate. A nice like rich chocolate, like the mayonnaise gives it a little bit of a tang, like a buttermilk cake would. But interesting with the chocolate, I think they balance each other out really well. And I will for sure make these again. Again, I'll leave a link in the description below to the author's recipe, and she also has a vanilla cupcake recipe with different ingredients. I might try that one. Off to enjoy my dessert.